Once you have a level and complete subfloor to frame on, you're ready to start building the house. The reason you want to acquire your windows and doors before you start framing is you want to model your framing off of the windows or doors that you've acquired. And most windows and doors are generally the same size, but for your specific doors or windows that you pick up, you're going to want to put 2 inches on the top side of the outside dimension of the window, 2 inches on the width sides as well. So just put 2 inches of space on all sides of the window. That way you have a little bit of wiggle room if there is something that you need to adjust. And then obviously the excess space can be filled with insulation later, so it's not an air gap. The first step of framing is you want to lay your bottom plate pieces to show exactly where you want there to be all of your exterior and interior walls. This will also be where you plan on putting any door openings or full wall window openings that would affect that as well. So you just simply nail a 2x4 down around where you're going to install your walls, and then when you build out your framing, you can stand the walls on top of that bottom plate and lift them up from there. My tiny house was in a rectangular formation, so it was going to be 4 walls, and within those 4 walls I needed to frame all of my windows and doors as well. You're going to want to make sure that you frame into your designs that you have 2 exit doors. Just for safety's sake, you want to make sure you have 2 exit doors. That way in the event of a fire, it's easy for the inhabitant, probably you, to escape from either direction of the house. So the biggest thing to remember for whenever you're adding a window or door is you need to have some type of increased reinforcement to account for the lumber that is not there where the window or the door is. So to do this, you want to make sure that your design has king studs, jack studs, a reasonably thick window header. I use 4x6 pieces, and then also you're going to want cripples that add any strength between the window header and the top plate or the window sill and the ground. Start the enclosure for the window or door as 2 king studs, and then on the inside you'll have jack studs, which are shorter than the king studs but hold the header piece that will be supporting the weight that is no longer supported when you have an opening. You can have your header directly against the top plate of the house, or you can have a header that's lower and have cripples that run between the header and the top plate of the house. For the full tutorial of how I framed my walls, go to www.diylifeguide.com, and I'll have the full explanation of how I framed out my walls, because it is a little bit of a complicated process, and I have schematics breaking down all the walls that I built. Another piece of advice is to frame the walls while they're laying down, and also sheathe the walls while they're laying down as well. That way you can lay sheets of plywood over your framing and then nail it in and then stand it up, instead of trying to nail and sheathing after the wall is stood up. Now it's going to be a lot more work. I had 8-foot tall walls, so I did this on purpose because I knew that I was going to have 4x8 sheets of sheathing to make standing up the walls easier. As I was framing out the walls and adding sheathing, I just laid the walls on top of each other on the platform, and then I was able to stand them up in sequence to get them all stood up and nailed to each other. For the full tutorial on how I lifted all the walls and attached them, go to DIYLifeguide.com. After all the walls are sheathed, you can start lifting the walls up and then nailing them into the ground. You want to be very careful with standing up walls. Make sure that you get some people to help you to lift the walls, because it can be very dangerous, and the wall itself can be many hundreds of pounds and can fall over and hurt someone or damage something. So make sure you get some help. The way I stand up a wall is I have the people help me stand it up, and then they can hold it in place, and then I nail the bottom plate of the wall into the bottom plate that I had nailed into the subfloor before. And then also I will use pieces of wood at a diagonal to support the wall. That way it doesn't get knocked over in the wind. For me, I use Huber Zip System, which allows me to skip the step of having to house wrap the house, because Huber Zip System acts as a air barrier and a water vapor barrier as well. So it saves a little bit of work by using Huber Zip System.